Welcome to our April Cabinet meeting, the last Cabinet meeting of this municipal year. Thanks to everyone that's present in the Council Chamber. As you know, this meeting is being live streamed and that has alongside live recording. This is a physical public meeting taking place in Hackney Town Hall. Only those elected members that are present in the room are counted as being present, but I can see that Councillor Etty and Councillor Mackenzie have joined online along with officer colleagues. The decisions will of course be published after the meeting. I don't have a huge amount of preamble other than to say it's been an incredibly busy month, but we have had the Easter bank holiday in between. I do hope, as I said in the Hackney Today column, that those that were able to enjoyed that bank holiday weekend. And it was that I think it's only 3 times a century alignment between Easter, Passover and Ramadan has gone into Eid. And I obviously extend my Eid greetings to those that were celebrating on Friday and Saturday, highlight the fact that our speaker is hosting a civic Eid event later this week, and recognise that hopefully people have enjoyed those 3 religious festivals. We have got a limited number of agenda items this evening, so I will just sort of canter through those as colleagues I know have to be at scrutiny at 7 o'clock, and I have to be at Colville TRA at 7 as well. I've got apologies for absence from Councillor Coban and apologies that would have been for lateness from Deputy Mayor Bramble and Councillor Woodley, but as colleagues were discussing before the meeting started, both Deputy Mayor Bramble and Councillor Woodley are at the Culverston School engagement event, and we obviously know how important that is. And I've said, notwithstanding the weather, that it was better that they remained with residents and local councillors at Culverston than join them this evening. So I think we'll note it as apologies for absence, if that is okay. There are no new items of urgent business for the racial interest that aren't already recorded. No, thank you. We've got no notice of intention to conduct business in private, and we have no questions and deputations this evening. Sorry, Councillor Williams.
Just to note on apologies, I've been listed as present online. I was present in person, I believe, on the 27th. That was the day that Connie was here and you and I did a tour.
Yeah, we can check that obviously quite easily, but yeah, that say present in person rather than online. You've jumped ahead though to the minutes, I think. There are no deputations, so item 6, no unrestricted urgent business. Item 7 is the minutes of the previous meeting. Councillor Williams has just contributed and reiterated that she was present, and we will check that and amend accordingly. There is a call-in of decision relating to CHE S179, which was the motorcycles parking permit review, which was a substantial debate and discussion and consideration of the petition at the last meeting. This has been subject to call-in procedure and is being considered by scrutiny panel tonight, details which are on the council website. So I don't want to preempt that, but obviously it's important that people that have been engaged in that debate and discussion, both here and at here and at council, as well as previous cabinet meetings, know that that is what is taking place at scrutiny panel at 7. I've also been notified that Councillor Kennedy has requested an amendment of paragraph 5.4 of the minutes from reading a small number of sites to a smaller number of sites in his response to Mr. Stops, the resident who asked a question at the previous meeting. So subject to those three additional pieces of information, are we happy to accept the unrestricted meetings and agree them and that amendment all in one go? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Item 8 is the unrestricted minutes of the previous meeting of the Cabinet Procurement and Insourcing Committee. I'll hand over to Councillor Chapman to introduce and highlight anything there.
Thank you, Chair. I'll introduce the minutes of the Cabinet Procurement and Insourcing Committee, which is effectively, technically constitutionally, but a subcommittee of Cabinet. I would just draw your attention to the range of important and just the sort of scale of council activities that we've covered in CPIC, and in this particular month we let contracts to the in respect of the aids and adaptations and provisions of sorry, I've just lost the page, as you always do when these moments and times, and the Integrated Community Equipment Service, which is a London-wide service, the consortium which we're part of, the SEND EPC Transportation, which again is obviously a very important service and enabled us to let contracts to a very large number of mainly local businesses providing transport and cabs, and also the provision of advice to homeless people from the Greenhouse, which is again one of our key services, and we are able to let that to a significant regional voluntary organisation, and it's a really good overview of the work of CPIC this month, I think. I probably won't go into such detail every time I introduce these minutes, but if you'll forgive me, I can commend that I think the Cabinet's asked to receive them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. I think that tradition has been served. That is exactly what used to happen from predecessor chairs. So really welcome that contribution, highlighting some of the work of the committee and what is being done in our delegated name. So thank you. Are we happy to note those comments and the unrestricted minutes? Great, thank you. So item 9 is capital update and disposals in my name. Obviously, we know what an ambitious programme we have from our Hackney Labour Manifesto. It's the first of the new financial year, not quite the new municipal year, and builds on the decisions that were taken in our budget and the work of the new strategic plan. Obviously, thank you to the finance team for the report, but also underneath that are obviously the individual departments and directorates that are delivering these programmes. I think I'm channeling a bit of Councillor Woodley here, as a fair chunk of the investment outlined here is in parks and green spaces. I was actually going through Haggerston Park today with Councillor Woodley, and you can see firsthand the impact of our investment in new play area refurbishments. The facilities there next to Seabright Children's Centre are absolutely second to none. And it's good that we're also planning in this report to invest in the 3G pitches. We continue that investment obviously across the borough, and we've seen a number of new play areas celebrated and opened, most in time for the Easter holidays. I had the privilege of seeing Stoke Newington Common, but I've also been to Butterfield Green and of course Shoreditch Park. Again, examples of our commitment as a council and a Labour administration to invest in those universal public goods in our playgrounds and supporting our families to have the best outdoor experience possible, and that is great for health and well-being and community cohesion. I think Councillor Woodley is looking forward to, now we've assuming we take the decision, to a further wave of engagement around playgrounds as well as the final plans for the old paddling pool at Clissold Park. But she did want to highlight that one of the greatest experiences of the Bay Area consultations was visiting pupil forums, the park user groups, meeting with ward councillors, all part of that co-production and working together at the heart of our strategic plan, but especially arriving at Stormont House Pupil Forum, which is one of our fantastic special schools, where 30 children were just bursting with ideas about how they wanted to see their playground reshaped and how to build inclusion at its very heart. And she wanted to pass that message on this evening. We're continuing as well the investment around toilet facilities in our parks and free toilets. That's especially important when you consider the high levels of use at Clissold. And then there is a small property acquisition, which is a single residential garage that allows us to unlock 20 new homes as part of that broader programme of 1,000 new council homes started on site by 2026. Those were my particular highlights. So that colleagues may want to debate the report further, or Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. I just want money that we're putting into the refurbishment and restoral of our heritage mortuary building. We've just approved some extra funding for it. The details are all laid out at 11.1.1 on page 45. But both on that page and in paragraph 3.1 on page 38, I just wanted to emphasise that we are wanting to reduce our reliance on off-site facilities, not reduce the reliability of off-site facilities. So just a typo, that just to tidy up that it's a reduction in reliance on facilities outside the borough, and very proudly restoring a heritage building. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kennedy. Do you just want to reiterate the numbering of that so that colleagues are fully aware of the change from
it's
reliability to reliance?
3.1 on page 38.
3.1 on page 38.
And 11.1.1 on page 45.
Great. Thank you. So subject to that change and amendment, it is also worth highlighting clearly the drawdown of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund resources as well, and that links through to the later item around our town centre aspirations, but it is also worth highlighting. Anything else? We happy to agree? Agreed. Thanks everyone. Over to you, Councillor Chapman, and the OFP.
Thank you, Mayor. Introducing the overall financial position report for this month, we're showing a deficit of the revenue account currently predicted at 7.844 million, which is obviously regrettable. But I think it's worth noting that the huge effort that my cabinet colleagues, yourself and the officers have put into making sure we can contain it to this position, given the severe pressures that have been on us all year. And obviously it's important that we continue to keep that up going forward, given the pressures that will continue. The other element of the report is asking us to accept the allocation we've received for our successful bids into London, into the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which it will give welcome support to Hackney. It is worth noting, though, that overall, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which replaces EU funding, the regional EU funding, if you remember, before Brexit, that London overall has done very badly out of this, and the Mayor in December complained that the total allocation for funding for London was less than half of what it was under the EU funding proposal. So while obviously the contribution we've got here is welcome, the overall impact on London of the post-Brexit arrangements is delirious, and you cannot level up the whole of the country while levelling London down, as we've said repeatedly. Thank you, Chair. I recommend the recommendations to set out in section 3.
Thanks, Councillor Chapman. It reminds me of the phrase I didn't use when talking about potholes, but you can't level up the UK with levelling down London's potholes, and you certainly can't do it around our revenue and capital funding in the Hunger Games type process that you see, not just in UK Shared Prosperity Fund, but some of the other areas where we've been successful. But we also acknowledge that the inequity built into these funding streams and their fragility. Any other questions or comments on the OFP? We're happy to agree it. And the recommendations agreed. I just received apologies from Councillor Ema as well. She's not even joining online, so if that can be read into the minutes. And now we have a double bonanza from Deputy Mayor Nicholson in terms of the linked papers 11 and 12 around Article 4 directions. I think it's worth noting from the chair and hopefully setting up Deputy Mayor Nicholson for his own introductions, the very strong track record of our planning department and our activism around protecting our retail and workspaces in the borough through the use of Article 4 directions, and the deep scepticism that we have as an administration about the role of unfettered conversions of to poor quality residential, and the fact that, you know, all across the UK, that conversion has often left poor quality housing and no contributions to public infrastructure and the communities in which those buildings have been converted. So again, really strong work here, but I'll hand it to you, Deputy Mayor Nicholson.
Thanks, Mayor Glanville. And also just to add that those homes that are a product of such conversions that have gone through this government-led initiative, so-called initiative, of course, there is absolutely no obligation or contribution to any form of affordable home as part of that process as well, just to make it even worse than what you were kind of absolutely rightly describing. And also, thanks for your comments, and I'm sure that the planning service would really kind of sort of feel quite comforted by your remarks in regards to challenging the government's proposal to, in effect, enable the conversion of commercial properties of quite a wide range to residential use without the need for requesting planning permission to do so, to change such uses. Hopefully, in both the introductions of item 11 and 12, Mayor Glanville, it's fairly clear about what it is that the government have been doing over the last sort of year since 2020. They have kind of regrouped uses in planning terms under a new use class, E. They've brought forward a permitted development right that means basically any kind of developer or property owner of anything that falls under that new use class can in effect convert to this substandard residential use without the need for any planning permission, irrespective of where that property is located. And it's now a timely moment for the council to look ahead, and it has been through some protracted discussions, and I would go so far as to say negotiations with central government on bringing forward what it is that we're looking at this evening. I can share with Cabinet colleagues, Mayor Glanville, that government have now pushed the button on the submission, and that submission will be made over the course of the next couple of weeks, literally, to government about the finer grain of what it is that's held within these two decisions that we've been asked to approve this evening. And that identifies the properties in our town centres of all scales and shapes and sizes. So paper 11, for example, as the introduction touches upon, includes the Shoreditch section of London's Central Activities Zone, and it embraces Hackney Central and indeed Dalston. And then the second paper picks up on those smaller local centres around the borough, those high streets, those local shopping centres, and those smaller town centres that we enjoy and indeed are thriving and doing good business around our borough. So between these two items, these two papers, they basically embrace all of those sort of, I'm going to call them both large and small business districts where we tend to go and shop, whether it be retail, but equally where a lot of jobs are actually based within the local economy, doing many different activities, not just retail. What we are hoping, Meg Glanville, is that on Cabinet's approval this evening, the submissions will be made to government, and in due course we hope that the Secretary of State will support the proposals coming from the London Borough of Hackney in regards to creating mixed-use, sustainable and inclusive town centres and high streets in our borough. It is both items 11 and 12 as set out, and I commend the reports to Cabinet. Thanks, Meg Glanville.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Nicholson. And I didn't want to mention those protracted discussions with government, but obviously, you know, we've been briefed on those, and I hope that they will listen to the arguments that are being made in these two reports. Clearly, they have to be considered separately, although you've made obviously a joint introduction to both. So if we take item 11, are we happy to agree the report and the recommendations set out within it? Agreed. Thank you. Item 12. Agreed. Thank you. And again, our good wishes to planning colleagues who've worked so hard on this to get it to this point. Item 13 is the Hackney Central Town Centre strategy. It's a paper both in my name and Deputy Mayor Nicholson's. A huge piece of work that is almost impossible to do justice to in one item. But I did just want to highlight the long and strong hinterland of community engagement that's led up to this point. Work that started under the Hackney Central Conversation has continued into this work and the development of the town centre strategy. I'd like to pay particular tribute to Robert Offord for leading this work from the Council's regeneration team, but it touches again on planning and so many other parts of the Council and into transport and everything else. I think the missions-based approach going forward gives us a huge amount of strength, whether we're talking about development and the planning system, or how all of us as a council work together across our different disciplines to support Hackney Central as our key civic, cultural and business town centre, and also an area where the key gateway to the borough takes place in terms of transport infrastructure, and many residents from diverse communities live. As with our work in Dalston, I think it provides an overarching framework to shape what happens there and support the next stage of Hackney Central's growth and change. You will also see linked to this the welcome accepted on behalf of the council to draw down the £19 million investment from the Levelling Up Fund. And I think without that clear sense of direction set out in our planning documents, in the Hackney Central Conversation and this emerging town centre strategy, we wouldn't have been as successful with that bid as we were. I note my deep thanks for all the partners and stakeholders that signed letters of support and engaged with us as we put that bid in. As with all funding bids, or many funding bids these days, central government, you need support of your local members of parliament. But it wasn't just a tick box support from Dame Meg Hillier as Hackney South and Shoreditch Member of Parliament. She was a key convening voice and supporter of this project, which she knows is at the heart of her constituency. And again, I take this opportunity to thank her. And it's probably one of the best and most thorough co-produced pieces of work that I've certainly been a part of, and it's been an honour to work with colleagues through that, as well as our external kind of consultants that have supported this work. And over to you, Deputy Mayor Nicholson, to bring this to life even further.
Oh, thank you, Meg Glanville. And if I may just add to what it is that you've been saying, and just to kind of emphasise your comments about the Hackney Central Conversation, that has sort of in effect informed and directed both the vision and the strategy, but equally will shape and influence where this extraordinary investment that has been achieved by the council into the town centre will flow in the months, the year ahead. That Hackney Central Conversation, you know, has involved many, many parts of our community and resident community, as well as civic society, as well as those involved in the local economy. And that resident community have been reflected, their diversity, in age, ethnicity, all of that has been reflected in the reach of the Hackney Central conversation that has helped inform this work and actually sit at the base of it and at the heart of it all. There is still a lot of work still left to do, as I know that you're more than aware of, and I know that colleagues across the council are very, very alive to the scale of what it is that is to be achieved in Hackney Central. And there is a great deal of interest and a great, as well as excitement. Indeed, following on from this cabinet meeting, I'm due at the Trelawney Estate, who the Tenants and Residents Association there have a very keen interest on where it is and how it is this investment will enhance their living environment and their town centre as they see it. So all of this plays out in many different corners of Hackney Central and the community of Hackney Central. But I think that we can go forward with some confidence that actually those conversations have definitely been had, that input has been captured in the missions that have been defined and described, and all of it focused on creating a greener and more sustainable and thriving town centre that is an inclusive place where people can find opportunities as well as some pretty good living going on and healthy living at that. So I'll finish there. Thanks, Meg Lovell.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Nicholson, and just concur with everything that you've said. Obviously, an apology on behalf of the whole council that it was published late as a supplementary paper due to further due diligence and the combining of the town centre strategy work with the LUF, the Levelling Up Fund paper. I did just slightly triggered by Deputy Mayor Nicholson in a positive way. We've had 3 really important celebratory engagement events held in the town hall since the start of the year. One with New London Architecture, one celebrating the Impact Fund, very clearly directed towards businesses and organisations in Hackney Central Town Centre, and the most latterly, the cultural organisations of the borough. And I think that the focus and the sense of this emerging strategy through each one of those events and the buy-in from those organisations that have been part of those different programmes and things like Hello Again Hackney earlier than that really do show that different relationship that we have with those institutions. And Young Futures were involved as well, and the Community Energy Fund has backed up some of the aspirations around decarbonisation, certainly of the Hackney Empire, a key icon here. So lots going on, lots captured in here. Really urge anyone with a passion and interest in Hackney Central to read the overall strategy, the missions, and then our aspirations for the LUF Fund. But perhaps, you know, it's easy on a very wet Monday evening in April not to recognise that this is probably one of the most significant packages that we brought forward in recent times to Cabinet. So on that note, are we happy to agree the papers and the recommendations? Thanks, everyone agreed. There are no new items on restricted urgent business. We are not, I don't assume, going to be looking at any of the CPIC exempt minutes, Councillor Chapman, unless colleagues rapidly get hold of my attention. So no need to exclude press or public. That takes us through items 16, 17, and I look forward to our next meeting on the 22nd of May, which will be the first of the next municipal year. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.